Check this video. You have seen this clip in our last video where you see turmeric turning red once it comes in contact with a base. But here is also something we should know. Why did this base turn the turmeric red? I mean, what is inside this base which makes it basic? Or what is inside the acids which make them acidic? By the end of this video, you will learn all this perfectly and you will understand what makes an acid acidic and what makes a base basic. So without wasting time, let's get started. Now, if I write the formulas of some acids here, like say HCl or H2SO4 or HNO3 or H2CO3, you'll find that there is one thing common between all these acids. That is, all these contain hydrogen. Now, does this mean that anything which contains hydrogen is an acid? Think about glucose. The formula of glucose is C6H12O6. So it has got hydrogen in it. Think about alcohol. Formula of ethanol, if I write it, then it is going to be CH3CH2OH. Both these substances contain H or hydrogen. Does this mean that these substances are acidic? Let's find out. In this experiment, if I put some HCl in water, you see that the bulb glows, which means HCl is able to conduct electricity. But if I add some glucose to the water, then the bulb does not glow, which means glucose does not conduct electricity. Now, what makes HCl conduct electricity? HCl conducts electricity because HCl produces ions. When I add HCl in water, or when HCl forms aqueous solution, it will form H plus or hydrogen ions. And the presence of these ions along with the Cl minus or chloride ions makes conduction of electricity possible. On the other hand, glucose, even though it contains hydrogen, it will not be able to produce hydrogen ions, and hence it will not be able to conduct electricity. So the bottom line is, what makes acids acidic? Acids show their acidic behavior because they can produce H plus ions. Now, this H plus ion cannot remain alone. So it reacts with water or combines with water and forms H3O plus ion. And this is called as hydronium ion. I'll repeat, H3O plus ion is called hydronium ion. Now that we know what acids have in common, what do the bases have in common? Let's understand. So if I write some formulas of bases like NaOH or KOH or MgOH2, you will see that all these acids have one thing in common, that is OH or hydroxide. Like acids produce H plus ions in aqueous solution, bases also dissociate and they form OH negative ions or hydroxide ions. For example, if I dissolve NaOH, sodium hydroxide, in water, it will produce Na plus and OH minus ions. And it is these OH negative ions or hydroxide ions that give the basic property to bases. So the key points that we need to remember here from whatever we have learned up to now is all acids produce H plus ions in aqueous solution. And it is this H plus ion which is responsible for giving the acidic properties to acids. On the other hand, all bases produce OH negative ions or hydroxide ion in the aqueous solution, and this ion gives the basic property to the bases. Also note, all the substances containing hydrogen may not be acids. Not all bases dissolve in water. There are some bases which are capable of dissolving in water, and these bases are called as alkali. I'll repeat, the bases which are soluble in water, we call them as alkali. So we can safely say that all alkalis are bases, but all bases are not alkali. Sodium hydroxide is a good example of an alkali. Now let's go a bit deeper into the ion formation of acids and bases. Suppose I react sodium chloride with sulfuric acid. HCl gas will be produced in this particular reaction. If I expose dry blue litmus paper to this HCl gas, you will not see any color change. It will remain blue. But if I expose moist blue litmus paper to this HCl gas, it will change its color from blue to red. So what really happened in presence of water? HCl cannot produce ions when there is no water. So if it cannot form ions, it will not be able to show its acidic properties. So when the litmus paper is dry, there is no formation of H plus ions. And this is the reason there is no acidic character shown by HCl and the blue litmus paper remains blue. But when we make it wet, because of water, the HCl gas dissociates to produce H plus and Cl minus ions. So because of the production of these H plus ions, you can see that the color of the litmus paper changes from blue to red. So remember, until and unless acids can produce H plus ions or bases can produce OH negative ions, they will not be able to show their acidic or basic behavior. So water is a very important factor here, as these ions can be produced only in presence of water. Now, when acid and base react, we call this reaction as neutralization reaction. We can visualize how this neutralization reaction actually happens. When acid and base react, the hydrogen ion of the acid and hydroxide ion of the base, they will combine and form water. And this is the reason why acid and bases cancel each other, as their ions, specifically H plus and OH minus ions, combine and form water. Now there is another concept you should know that is called as dilution. Dilution is simply mixing acid or base in water. But remember, we should never add water to acid, as this reaction is highly exothermic, and if we add water to acid, then the mixture might splash out, it might cause burns, or your test tube or beaker might break because of the local heating. So always add acid to water drop by drop with constant stirring, and never add water to acid. So in the dilution process, when we mix acid in water or base in water, we are reducing the concentration of ions. In other words, we are reducing the strength of the acids and bases. So here is a trick to remember whether we should add water to acid or acid to water. So in the alphabetical order, if we go, then A comes before W. That means you should always add acid to water and not water to acid. Now, if we talk about acids in more detail, we can classify acids into two different categories. One is called as organic acids, and other category is inorganic or mineral acids. Now, remember that organic acids are weak acids, whereas inorganic or mineral acids are strong acids. The example of mineral acids can be HCl, HNO3, or H2 SO4. These are inorganic or mineral acids. The examples for organic acid, we can write CH3, COOH, which is acetic acid, H2CO3, which is carbonic acid, and HCOOH, which is methanoic acid or formic acid. Here is the way we can identify which one is organic acid and which one is inorganic. The carbon-based acids are usually organic acids, like you can see CH3COOH or H2CO3. These are all organic acid, whereas the other acids like HCl, which contains chlorine, or H2SO4, which contains sulfur, or HNO3, which contains nitrogen, these are all inorganic or mineral acids, which means not all acids have same strength. So now the question arises is what makes certain acids stronger and what makes certain acids weaker? Strength of acids and bases depend upon the concentration of ions they produce. If an acid is able to produce higher concentration, or in simple words, higher number of H plus ions, then it will be a strong acid. If a base likewise is able to produce higher concentration or higher number of OH negative ions, then it will be a strong base. So why certain acids are able to produce more H plus ions and why certain bases are able to produce more or less OH negative ions? The reason is the dissociation. Some acids undergo complete dissociation. That means almost all the formula units or the molecules of HCl, for example, will dissociate and form H plus and Cl minus ions. So this gives rise to more number of H plus ions, so it makes HCl stronger. On the other hand, acids like acetic acid or carbonic acids, which are organic acids, are weaker acids. Now these acids, they undergo incomplete dissociation, and as a result, they will produce fewer number of OH negative ions, and hence they are weaker acids. You should know that there are acids all around you. There are many substances in our kitchen which contain acids. There are fruits and other things like curd which also contain acids. So for example, the curd contains lactic acid, tomato contains oxalic acid, lemon contains citric acid, tamarind contains tartaric acid, vinegar contains acetic acid. Honeybee, when it stings, it releases an acid under your skin, and that is called as methanoic acid or the formic acid. So you have to remember these examples of certain acids which you find in the substances surrounding us. I'll put up a table on the screen. You can take a screenshot of this table. So let's summarize our video and list out the main points which you need to remember here. First, all acids produce H plus ions in their aqueous solution, which then combines with water to form H3O plus ion. Second, all bases produce OH negative or hydroxide ion in their aqueous solution. Both H plus and OH minus ions combine and form water, which leads to neutralization. Hence, reaction between acid and base is called as neutralization reaction. 4. The bases which dissolve in water, these are called as alkali. 5. H plus ions or OH negative ions can be only produced in presence of water. That's why we saw that blue litmus paper, which is dry, does not change any color when exposed to HCl gas, but wet litmus paper changes the color from blue to red. 6. Dilution is an exothermic process, and you should always add acid to water, A to W, and not water to acid. Last point is, strong acids completely ionize and produce higher concentration of H plus ions. Weak acids incompletely ionize and produce lower concentration of H plus ions. Now we know that not all acids are equally strong or not all bases are equally strong. In the next video, we'll see how to measure the strength of acids and bases. And we'll also try to answer some curious questions that why we have to use a toothpaste, for example, or how the antacids work, or why acid rain destroys water, or why there are cavities in your teeth. So if you don't want to miss out on that video, then please subscribe to the channel and keep learning. See you in the next video.